This is, if I could say one more thing, a podcast about the conversations we wish we had the courage to have. Each episode begins with a real story request from someone who's been carrying unfinished words, sometimes for years. Together, we imagine what that conversation might sound like if it were spoken with honesty, compassion, and a full heart. Because sometimes hearing the words out loud is the first step towards saying them in real life. Today's story comes from a mother who wrote to me about a quiet fear. Over the years, she and her daughter have grown further apart than either of them expected. Nothing dramatic happened, just the slow accumulation of misunderstandings, silence, and time. She wondered what it might sound like if she could speak to her daughter honestly, without defensiveness, without fear. This is that imagined conversation. The story is called The Place I Still Have. Claire doesn't wait for Linda to come around the car the way she used to. She opens the passenger door herself and slides in, turning the air vent toward her seat, something to occupy her hands while her mother finishes at the trunk. Linda stands at the trunk a second longer than necessary. Claire's suitcase fits the trunk the way it always has, slightly sideways, handle folded down, one wheel catching before settling into place. Linda closes the trunk carefully, no slamming. Inside the car, Claire is already scrolling. Reflex, habit, shield. Linda settles behind the wheel and starts the engine. Too cold? She asks. Claire doesn't look up. Mom, it's fine. The word lands between them, familiar, unceremonious, practiced. Linda shifts into reverse, then pauses. Seat belt, she says. Claire exhales. I've got it. Linda glances sideways anyway. Claire pulls the strap across her chest with deliberate emphasis and clicks it into place. There. Linda nods once, satisfied. They pull away from the curb. For a few blocks, neither of them speaks. The tires hum against the road, a stop sign, a right turn, the familiar rhythm of a town that has not changed its mind about itself in decades. Claire rests her forehead briefly against the window. Linda keeps both hands on the steering wheel, 10 and 2. The silence between them is not hostile. It is practiced. Finally, Linda says gently, "That was a beautiful wedding yesterday." Claire nods. It was. Linda glances towards her briefly. You okay after all that? Claire knows what she means. The white dress, the vows, the first dance, the quiet way relatives had said, "It's so good to see you home." I'm fine, Mom. Linda nods. She has respected that word most of her life. Fine meant don't hover, don't pry. Trust her. Linda trusted Claire at 5 when she insisted on tying her own shoes. Trusted her at 16 when the bedroom door slammed. Trusted her at 38 when she called one evening and said, "Mom, I think it's over." That was 2.5 years ago. The divorce had come quietly. No betrayal dramatic enough to explain to friends. Just two people slowly realizing the same life was no longer the same life. Claire had called on a Tuesday night. "It's done." Linda had gripped the kitchen counter with her free hand. "You'll land on your feet, sweetie," she had told her daughter. It was what she believed. It was also what she had once been told by a woman who didn't know how to say anything softer. The car passes the town park. Linda glances towards the soccer field. "Do you remember that game when you twisted your ankle?" Linda asks. "You must have been 10. Claire follows her gaze out the window. "The soccer game?" she says. Linda nods. "You went down near the sideline." Claire smiles faintly. "I remember you running across the field like the coach had waved you in." Linda chuckles softly. "You asked me something in the car afterward." Claire turned slightly toward her. "What did I ask?" Linda keeps her eyes on the road. "You asked if I had been scared." Claire thinks for a moment. "And you said no." "I did," Linda says. She pauses. "But what I didn't tell you was that I was terrified." Claire turns her head toward her mother. Linda keeps driving. "You didn't need to see that part," she says. Claire studies her. "You've never seemed afraid." Linda lets out a small breath. "I worked pretty hard at that." Claire leans back in her seat. "Yeah," she says softly. "You did." The road widens towards the highway leading to the airport. Claire scrolls through pictures from the wedding reception. Cousins laughing, champagne glasses raised, the bride spinning under soft lights. "You seemed quiet at the reception last night," Linda says carefully. Claire shrugs. "It was loud." Linda glances at her. "That's not what I meant, sweetie." Claire lowers her phone. Linda clears her throat. I've been thinking about something." Claire exhales slowly. "That sounds ominous." It isn't. A turn signal clicks. Linda steadies her voice. "I think I may have missed you. A little." Claire lowers her phone completely now, then asks softly, "What do you mean?" "Well, when everything ended," Linda says, "I didn't ask much. I told myself you needed space." Claire turns toward the window again. "You didn't ask anything, Mom." Linda keeps her eye on the road, but the words stir an old memory. Claire was 16. The bedroom door had slammed so hard the hallway picture frames rattled. Linda had stood outside the door afterward, listening. Inside the room, Claire was crying. the kind of teenage crying that carries anger in it, even when no one else is there. Linda rested her hand lightly against the door, not knocking, not opening it, just waiting. Eventually, the crying softened. Linda stepped away and went back to the kitchen. Later that evening, while rinsing the dishes, she said casually, "Rough day?" Claire had leaned in the doorway and shrugged. "Something like that." Linda nodded. "If you want to talk, I'm around." It had seemed like the right thing to do. Give space, leave the door open. What she never asked herself was whether Claire had needed the door opened instead. The car moves forward in traffic. Claire folds her arms loosely. "I didn't need space," she said quietly. "I needed... I don't know." Linda nods slightly. "You didn't have to know," she said softly. Claire shakes her head. "It was 2 years ago." 2.5, Linda replies gently. Claire glances at her. "You remember the timeline?" "I remember everything." Claire sighs. "I handled it. I'm handling it." "I know you are," Linda says. "That's never been the question." "You don't have to revisit it," Claire says. "We're past it." Linda drives a few seconds in silence. "That might be true for the paperwork," she says. "I'm not so sure it's true for us." Claire exhales. "We're fine." Linda nods slowly. "I think that's the word I've hidden behind my whole life," she says, "and I'm not sure it's working anymore." Claire turns toward her. "What are you trying to say, Mom?" Linda keeps her eyes on the road. "When you told me it was over, I didn't know what the right question was." Claire studies her. "You didn't blink," she says. "You just said I'd land on my feet." "I didn't want to panic." "I didn't need you to panic," Claire says. "I needed you to care." "I did care, sweetie." "But you looked untouched." Linda nods. "I thought staying steady was the same as staying close." Claire looks out the window. "Well, it didn't feel that way." They drove a little farther. "For months," Claire says quietly, "I kept thinking I was being dramatic. That if you weren't worried, well, maybe I shouldn't be either." "You were never dramatic, sweetie." "That's not how it felt." Claire stares ahead. "You didn't ask how it felt to wake up alone in a house that used to be ours." Linda inhales slowly. "How did it feel?" Claire lets out a soft laugh. "You don't get to ask that now." "I know," Linda says, "but I'm asking." Traffic thickens near the airport. "For a while," Claire says quietly, "it felt like I had failed at something permanent." Linda listens. "It felt like everyone was watching to see if I had crumbled," Claire continues. "And when you didn't look worried, I thought maybe I wasn't allowed to." Linda's grip tightens slightly on the wheel. I was worried, Linda says. You didn't look it. I didn't want you to feel worse. Claire gives a small laugh. I already felt worse. They inch forward in the departure lane. I didn't know how to sit with the pain that I couldn't solve, Linda says. I didn't need you to solve it, Claire says. I just needed you there. I can try that now, Linda says gently. Claire glances at her. That's new. Linda smiles faintly. Well, I'm learning. For a moment, neither of them says anything. Claire looks down at her hands. I stopped telling you things. I know. You didn't ask, and when you did, it felt practical, like you were gathering data. Linda nods. I felt you were pulling away. I told myself it was adulthood. Part of it was. And the rest? Claire hesitates. The rest was me thinking, if you weren't going to sit in it with me, well, I'd stop inviting you in. Linda nods slowly. I don't want to lose my place in your life, sweetie. Claire looks at her. I'm not disappearing, Mom. I know, Linda says, but I can feel when you edit yourself with me. Claire sighs. You've always been good at noticing, and I'm trying to notice better. They reach the curb. Linda puts the car in park. For a moment, neither moves. Claire reaches for the door handle. I wasn't trying to drift, she says quietly. I know, Linda answers. I just felt it. Claire nods. I don't want to edit myself. And you don't have to. Claire steps out. They stand facing each other. Claire leans in first. The hug is brief but real. When she pulls back, Claire says, Text me when you get home. Linda lets out a soft breath. I am home. Claire pauses, then after a beat, then stay. Linda nods. I will. After writing this story, I spoke with the woman who requested it. In the story, we call her Linda and her daughter Claire. Their names have been changed to protect their privacy. I wanted to know what it felt like for her to hear this imagined conversation, and whether it helped her think about how she might speak to her daughter in real life. Here's our conversation. Linda, when you wrote to me asking for this story, you said something very honest. You said that you and your daughter don't get along the way you used to, and that you're afraid of losing her. What made you decide to write in and ask for a story like this?
I think it came from a place of worry and maybe a little regret. My daughter and I used to be very close when she was younger. Not in a dramatic way. We just had an easy relationship. We talked a lot. We laughed. We understood each other. But over the past few years, something has changed. It's not that we're estranged. I mean, we still talk. We still see each other sometimes. But there's a distance now that wasn't there before. And I don't always know what caused it. I started wondering if maybe there were things I had said, or things I hadn't said, that slowly created that distance. I didn't want to confront her in the wrong way and make things worse. So I found myself wishing I could almost rehearse the conversation somehow. And that's what I wrote to you. I wanted to hear what that conversation might sound like if I spoke honestly, but gently.
When you heard the story, this imagined conversation between you and Claire in the car on the way to the airport, did any part of it feel familiar to you?
Yes, very much so. Especially the parts where the mother is trying to explain why she stayed calm, during difficult moments. That's something I recognize in myself. I've always believed that being a good parent meant being steady, not overwhelming your child with your emotions, not making their problems bigger by reacting too strongly. But hearing the story made me realize that when I thought of as strength, might sometimes have looked like distance. And that was difficult to hear. But also very helpful.
There's a moment in the story where the daughter says something very simple. She says, "I didn't need you to solve it. I just needed you there." When you heard that line, what went through your mind?
Honestly, it stopped me for a second. Because I realized that I've spent a lot of my life trying to solve problems for people I love. Or, if I couldn't solve them, at least trying not to make them worse. But the idea of just being there without fixing anything, well, that's something that I am still learning. That line made me think about how many times my daughter might have just wanted presence instead of reassurance. And that's a humbling realization.
In the story, the mother eventually says something very vulnerable. She admits that she might have missed her daughter a little. If you imagine saying those words to your own daughter, how does that feel?
Oh, it feels scary. Not because I don't mean it, but because saying something like that requires admitting you might have been wrong. Parents don't always like to do that. We're used to being the ones who are supposed to know better. But I think what scares me more is the idea of never saying it. Because silence can slowly build walls between people. And I don't want that with my daughter.
Did hearing this imagined conversation change anything for you? Did it help you see a possible way to talk to your daughter about how you're feeling?
Yes, I think it did. The story showed me that The conversation doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to fix everything in one moment. I mean, it can start with something simple, just saying, I miss being close to you, or I might have misunderstood what you needed. Those are small sentences, but they open a door. And sometimes opening the door is the hardest part.
If your daughter happened to hear this episode someday, what would you want her to know?
Oh, I would want her to know that I love her very, very much. And that if there are moments when I seemed distant, it wasn't because I didn't care. It was usually because I was trying not to make things harder for her. But I'm beginning to understand that sometimes caring means stepping closer and not stepping back. And if she ever wants to talk, I'm here. I always have been.
Before we go, I want to leave you with one small thought. Relationships rarely fall apart in a single moment. More often, distance grows quietly in the spaces where words were never spoken. But those spaces aren't always permanent. Sometimes a relationship can change simply because one person finds the courage to say something honest, and the other person is willing to listen. If today's story stayed with you, consider sharing this episode with someone who might need it. And if there's a conversation you wish you could have, something left unsaid with someone important in your life, you can write to me through the link in the show notes. Some stories are ready to be told. Others are still gathering courage. I'm Andrea Applewick, and this is If I Could Say One More Thing.